Good evening, my friends. This is the Grimflayer. Hope you're all doing very well tonight. We're playing some more Golgari in Modern, playing some Dark Confidant Golgari to be exact. And just to get something out of the way quick, this is going to be a quick video just so people aren't thrown off. And the post-sideboard games are over before they really begin. So just so everybody knows what you're getting into so you're not disappointed at the end of the video, this is a game where all of the intricate gameplay, all of the real action takes place in game one. Just fair warning. And while we're just spoiling everything right at the beginning of the video, let's also acknowledge the fact that this is a matchup against humans, and my scouting report against humans, coincidentally enough, is now, as of just a couple minutes ago, live on Patreon. So if you would like to support the channel and if you would like access to Patreon exclusive content in the form of scouting reports and other tier rewards, please visit patreon.com/grimflayermtg. Link is in the description below, and consider supporting this channel. And as always, thank you to all of you who do. So anyway, let's play some Golgari. We are faced with the prospect of a completely unplayable hand. We have one land, and we have no one-mana spells, so this is going to, unfortunately, be a mulligan. Our opponent has kept 7. This is never a great way to start things off, but how do we like our 6? Well, our 6 is pretty darn fantastic. We've got 2 discard spells, which is always great in a blind game 1. And if they're playing to the board, Fatal Push is one of the best cards we can have. Liliana of the Veil is our top end, as painless, 2 colors. As far as a 6 goes, this is about as good as we could ask for. Now, Scavenging Ooze is an interesting one on top, right? Because we kind of need the 3rd land, but at the same time, we kind of need a threat. And this could play really well with all of our forms of interaction, including the Liliana, if we ever get that 3rd land. So with us being on the draw, having that turn 1 draw, we've got 3 turns to hit a land drop. I think we're supposed to keep this Ooze on top, but that is a little bit debatable. However, I like keeping it. And yep, unclaimed territory, naming humans, so right off the bat we know what we're against, but they don't have a turn 1 play, which is pretty good for us. So let's Inquisition them and see exactly what they are working with. So they've got 3 lands. They've got a Kessig Malcontents, which is not one that you see every day. This is kind of similar to Shaman of the Pack. Do note that it can also target Planeswalkers. I don't think Shaman of the Pack can, because Shaman is life loss. This is damage. So it's a little bit different. It's also a 3-1 instead of a 3-2. But it's basically the Shaman of the Pack of this humans deck. Certainly not one that you see in every list, but it's a strong card. I like it. It gives good reach. It's a really good game 1 card. Then we see Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, one of our old nemesis, and a pair of Kitesail Freebooters. So this is a hand that's fairly strong in terms of its effects, but lacks beef. Like, it doesn't have any threat that is going to grow quite yet. So that's kind of what we're observing structurally with the hand. So what do we take? Well, if they only had 1 freebooter, it might be tempting to take a freebooter, simply because having our hand disrupted is a little bit less than ideal. But we only have 2 lands. Thalia could be a big issue. I don't think that on the draw we should allow ourselves to be taxed as heavily as Thalia is going to tax us, especially because they could, in theory, lead on the freebooter, take our Fatal Push, and then play the Thalia afterwards. Of course, we will then have a chance to Thoughtseize. I don't know. There's just a lot of ways that it could get really clunky really quickly for us. I like the raw power of our hand. I think we can fight through these freebooters a little bit better than we can fight through the tax, at least for the moment. Kessig Malcontents is not a card I'm interested in taking. It's fine, but it's not the thing we're worried about at the moment. we are going to disrupt them at least one more time before they even have a chance to play that card. So it's not exactly the biggest threat at the moment. They're going to play out a Cavern, and they will indeed play the Booter. What are they going to take? Might be the Fatal Push. It's the Fatal Push. You got it. All right, back to us, and we have drawn our third land. This is really good news. Really, really good news. Playing Liliana on curve here is great. So here we could either Ooze or we could Thoughtseize, but I think we pretty much have to Thoughtseize, because remember, Freebooter can take a non-creature, non-land, so the Freebooter taking our way our Liliana would be very bad. So we need to basically take that Freebooter away unless they show us something else crazy. They're showing us a Reflector Mage, which is a good card in the matchup, generally. It's also going to stop our Ooze from getting too out of control, at least permanently, right? So that's definitely one that is worth noticing and is often worth taking, but for now it doesn't look like we're going to play a creature until turn 4 at the earliest. Both of these cards, if we leave them in their hand, are a little bit awkward. Here they're not getting anywhere near the amount of damage that they'd like on its ETB, and here, of course, they don't have a target. So Freebooter is the clear take there. We'll just play out another land and pass. We're not even really bluffing a Fatal Push here, because we would probably just main phase push the Freebooter, but anyway, they're going to play out the Canopy, they're going to hit us for 1. And will they play either of these cards to the empty board? It doesn't look like they're willing to, so they'll crack the Canopy looking for a draw, looking for a 1-drop to play here, and they found it. So that was you know, as bad as like a turn 3 Vial can be and often is. It actually fit pretty well into what they were doing that turn. They didn't have a great play, presumably here. Maybe they just drew another land or whatever, and, you know, they ended up having to kind of dig, and they were rewarded by finding an Ether Vial. That said, they have not stopped us from playing this Liliana. We draw Collective Brutality. That's an interesting one. I still think we have to play the Lily here. I still think this is the best play. We're going to Edict this thing away, buy back our Fatal Push, and we are setting up for a really powerful turn 4. Now, what they can do here, of course, remember, this thing can damage Planeswalkers. So the very best they are going to be able to do with this card is play it now, hit the Liliana, or sandbag it and try to get a really big payoff later down the road. But this kind of incentivizes them to play it out now. And if they just tap out for a 3-1 that finishes off our Lily, that's not that bad, because right now we don't want to pitch anything in our hand anyway, right? So I kind of like running her out there, obviously to kill the Freebooter, get back our push, and if this draws out the Malcontents, and it does, yeah, I'm totally fine with that. Like, we could have killed the Freebooter without exposing our Liliana, but again, I see nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Feels like a fine trade to me. And we will draw a Verdant Catacombs. All right. So this is a pretty good draw, because this allows us to be more proactive than just simply playing a removal spell and passing. Now that we have 2 mana to hold up, I really like playing the Ooze here. It allows us to grow to a 4/4, which is like just the size we want the Ooze to be, and potentially to stay at. It's big enough to outsize their 2/3, to outsize their 3/1. It's big enough to start clocking them, but we haven't, you know, totally consumed all the fuel in the graveyard just to get bounced back with a Reflector Mage. We want to strike the balance between being big and proactive now and having an eye toward the long game, because sooner or later they will bounce this Ooze with the Mage, and we need to be able to regrow it when we play it back after that. So, but the fact that we get to pass with 2 mana open here is great, because we can make the Ooze a 4/4, or we can Fatal Push something and make it a 3/3. We'll just have to see what they do. Thalia's Lieutenant, sure, you got it. So, Lieutenant's a pretty good one overall. Here it only gets to buff one thing, but, you know, the Malcontents are pretty big now. They don't want to attack, so they're respecting all of the things that we could have. Fair enough. So on the end step, I'm going to gobble up a creature, and then I'm going to push the Lieutenant, planning potentially to Brutality away this Malcontents and start getting in. Now, we draw another Fatal Push. Very, very good draw. We are drawing some pretty decent gas off the top, it must be said. So let's start off. We're just going to go ahead and clear this thing right out of the way. They've got a reply. All right, it's a phantasmal image. Going to copy the malcontents. All right, so here, what I tried to do was respond to the trigger by pushing the malcontents. Now, maybe I'm misunderstanding exactly how this works. I think with Fatal Push, you can target anything. It says destroy target creature if it has converted mana cost 2 or less. So, of course, this doesn't fit the bill. It wouldn't be destroyed, but it will be sacrificed due to the text on Phantasmal Image. So I attempted to do this, but I tried a few times and the client wouldn't really let me. So I take an extra point of damage that I wouldn't really need to otherwise, but that is all right. We're still at a nice healthy life total, and maybe I just had that wrong. I don't know. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and get in with the Ooze, bluffing a couple activations. They will not take the block, so we're going to actually follow through on our bluff and eat a couple things. I'm pretty happy to hold the Fatal Push here. I don't care too much about this thing. There might be things I care more about. I can always get it next time, and this will probably incentivize our opponent to play out their Reflector Mage this turn, and that's just fine with me because they've still got 2 things in the graveyard that they're going to have a third after we push something, and kind of the sooner I get that out of their hands, the better in a way. So sure, they're going to hit us for 3. They're going to Vial and do nothing. Maybe that was just a misclick, I'm not sure. But of course they can still hardcast this Reflector, and yep, there goes our Ooze as we knew would happen. Fine with us. I mean, not great by any means, but fine. We draw another Fatal Push, so yay top deck. Great job. I'm just not, I thought about trying to push that Malcontents here in the main phase, but now that I've got 3 cards in hand and 4 mana untapped, I'm going to bluff a little bit. Let's just see what they do. We're going to go straight to attacks. Alright, so now I'm going to Fatal Push the Malcontents, and yep. So here, this time it allowed me to target. I'm really not sure why it didn't last time. I've been very busy lately, so maybe I'm just missing something blatantly obvious there. So feel free to fill me in if I'm just having a brain fart here. But we do, at the second attempt, get to finally push that thing, and we'll take 2. The opponent will just pass. They've got 2 unknowns in hand, a Vial on 3. Alright, fair enough. And we draw Tarmogoyf. Tarmogoyf is a quite good draw, but I think what we should do here is play out the Ooze. The Ooze is just as proactive as the Tarmogoyf, basically. It can grow to a similar size. It can grow to a 5/5 over the course of a couple turns instead of a 5/6. It's also going to gain us life, which I think is more important here anyway. We definitely want something that's big and can clock, but we also need to gain some life along the way. And of course it also conceals information from our opponent. We could have played the Tarmogoyf as well, but I like holding up push here. I like holding up the Ooze activations as well. See what the opponent does. They're just going to pass. Interesting. Alright, so they've got the Vial on 3, and we are just going to go ahead and regrow the Ooze, gain a couple points of life, and we'll draw Liliana the Last Hope. Now that is a very, very good draw. Our top deck continues to be great, but I don't think I want to just slam her in the main phase. Partially because, again, we want to keep concealing information for as long as possible, and partially because I would prefer to play her when she can just come down and get a clean kill. Now, our opponent is slow rolling a little bit, so that might not present itself, but that is still the ideal with her. So anyway, let's start off by attacking with the Ooze. Alright, opponent's not assigning blocks, so we could gobble up a Phantasmal Image and get in for an extra point of damage. I don't think that's that relevant, partially because it will also shrink the Tarmogoyf, right? And we're going to play the Tarmogoyf, I think, in the second main. So you could gobble that up, you could not. That's really kind of a whatever decision. It's fine either way, in my opinion. So we'll go ahead and play the Goyf. In here, once again, we'll just pass with 2 mana open, where we've got Fatal Push up, we've got an Ooze activation up. Let's see what they've got. They did not violin anything on the end step. That is interesting. But they're going to vial here in the main phase. Okay. Mantis Rider. Sure, Mantis Rider is a good one. Right now we can't Fatal Push anything. We can Fatal Push that, though. That's a Phantasmal Image, so this will probably either copy Rider or Tarmogoyf. It's going to copy Tarmogoyf. Alright, fair enough. Opponent gets in with the Rider. Still got 2 cards in hand. We can't do anything about the Rider, and they'll pass. So, on the end step, do we want to Fatal Push the Tarmogoyf, the Phantasmal Image on Tarmogoyf? That is the big question. Because if we don't want to do that, we can just play Liliana the Last Hope and tick her up, targeting the Tarmogoyf to kill it. That is really, really good. That said, I think we are far... Like, they certainly would have played a Reflector Mage over the last 2 turns if they had one. And in fact, Image on the Reflector Mage was actually a reasonable play anyway. The problem for them with that is that we have 2 things that are outsizing their board if they do that. Both Ooze and Goyf are too big for them to handle cleanly. So I see why they chose the Goyf, makes total sense. And we can push the Goyf to be mana efficient, basically, or we can be card efficient by holding the push, playing the Liliana. The problem with holding the push is we still don't have a target for Fatal Push. Like, we still don't have a Revolt to kill either of the other things. If we had a reasonable expectation of getting a Revolt, then I would hold the push. But because we do not, I went ahead and pushed this on the end step. We're just being fully mana efficient, and we'll go ahead and eat something with the Ooze as well. Alright, we draw Field of Ruin, so there's our Revolt that we could have had, so that's a little bit punishing, but still, this is totally fine. Playing the Liliana the Last Hope, like, we're far enough ahead where she doesn't have to be backbreakingly good. She just has to come down and shrink their stuff a little bit. This stops them from turning the corner and winning out of nowhere, potentially, with, you know, maybe a couple Thalia's Lieutenants or something like that, or maybe Lieutenant into Rider, something along these lines. You know, shrinking the Rider is great here. It also means they cannot double block anything here. We've just got 2 giants crashing in. Unfortunately, we are 1 shy of lethal. Our opponent sees that, and they're just going to take it. Eating the Image doesn't do anything here because that just shrinks the Goyf. So we're just a tad shy of lethal. That said, I don't think it's worth holding anything back. I don't think we're supposed to hold back and block there. We're just supposed to commit, make them have something here. They take their draw step, and they will scoop. All right, we did it, we did it, we did it. So, some pretty solid top decks in the mid-game, I must say. We got a Collective Brutality, we got a couple Fatal Pushes, and we got a Lily the Last Hope. I mean, these cards are all very, very good against humans, but you'll note that we never had any of them be absolutely perfect. Like, Brutality was just a kill spell. We didn't escalate with some dead cards to get great value out of it. Liliana the Last Hope didn't kill anything. She just kind of ticked up to shrink the Mantis Rider, and then the game was over. Fatal Pushes were obviously fine, but we never got to push things on our own terms. Like, we never got a Revolt for the Mantis Rider the turn it came down, for example, which would have been ideal, then allowed us to take care of the Phantasmal Image with our Liliana tick up. So, none of our stuff was used optimally that we found. Through no fault of our own, it was just the way the cards kind of all came together. But the power of our early interaction and the power of having some threats that are monstrous compared to their threats meant that we didn't need our mid and late game interaction to be perfect. We just needed it to keep us ahead. And it did that perfectly well. Definitely have no issues with that. So, yeah, not the most textbook display of our individual cards being completely overpowered, except for maybe our creatures, you know, Scavenging Ooze and Tarmogoyf. These were the things that really overperformed in this matchup. Now, like I said at the beginning, they had a hand that was high on strong effects, whether they be ETB effects like Freebooter and Malcontents or the tax, but it lacked beef, it lacked oomph, it lacked power and toughness. And the only thing they found to remedy that was Athalia's Lieutenant, which came down on a board state with only one other human to buff, and then immediately died to a fatal push. Mantis Rider, of course, also fits that bill, but that was more of a late game pickup for them when they were already a bit too far behind. So, as good as the humans deck is, because it can present a clock and all the tribal synergies while interacting with cards like this, sometimes they just need the dumb beaters, right? Sometimes they just need the high power and toughness stuff. They didn't have it here. We were able to make sure they didn't get it. And we just goifed them and scoozed them. So anyway, good game, well played to the opponent. While our sideboarding protocol on the channel here is still kind of in flux as I continue to receive comments and votes about how people want me to handle that, I'll just briefly touch on what we should do here. We bring in stuff that's we bring out stuff, that's too painful to be great. Thoughtseize is the prime culprit. Thoughtseize is not a great card in general, even though it was fine here, because in the mid to late game it's a bad top deck, it's painful. They can empty their hand potentially in response to a Thoughtseize with Ether Vial, so not the greatest, especially how painful it is. So we want to leave in our Inquisitions, but take out our Thoughtseizes. We also want to trim around the edges at some of the stuff that's a little bit too slow and or painful. So I like, with my deck here, maybe taking out one each of Bob, Liliana of the Veil, and Tireless Tracker. Just a mix of stuff that's a little bit too slow and grindy, especially on the draw, to be great in multiples. So we don't mind seeing one Bob or one Lily or one Tracker. Those are all fine. But having too many of those is a little bit rough, and we'll just bring in everything that's a kill spell. We'll bring in Engineered Explosives, Languish, Brutality, Deathmark, stuff like this. And I also like Kitchen Finks here. Kitchen Finks is a totally fine card in the matchup, so sideboarding would look something like that. But let's go check out our game 2 real quick and see what happens. Alright, my friends, game 2 against humans. On the draw, having one game 1 in our hand is great. Like I said, we take out Thoughtseizes, but we leave in Inquisition, so seeing Inquisition in the opener here is just perfect. Collective Brutality is basically only a kill spell in this matchup. The life drain is relevant as well, but we're never really going to discard with this, but a kill spell of any kind is desirable in the opening hand. We have Kitchen Finks as our almost certainly going to be our turn 3 play. It's okay, you know, Lily of the Veil, Lily of the Last Hope, or even a double spell turn like Creature into push. A lot of turn 3s are better. But Finks is fine, definitely worth bringing in, and solid against some of the more aggressive progressions. So really nice to have this, and then of course we have some late game value online if we can get there. And it looks like we're going to be able to get there. We've got the interaction and the tools to stabilize the board. So I like it a lot. Our opponent will keep 7 as well. Alright. Plains, Champion of the Parish, pass. Swamp is our draw. We'll lead on Blooming Marsh, though. We'll play Inquisition of Kozilek, and they have a very land-heavy hand. They have double Horizon Canopy, though, for some draws, but they have Phantasmal Image and Reflector Mage. Both of these cards are super awkward because Reflector Mage doesn't have a target, and Phantasmal Image, of course, I guess is less awkward. It's totally fine to hit the champion. It could potentially be awkward if we were on the play and we had a kill spell, though. So, but Image is the clear take here, in my opinion. We'll just take that away and pass to the opponent. They're going to draw, and then they are just going to scoop it up. So I told you guys that all the action happened in game 1. Game 2, they just did not like their odds, and they just said, screw this, I am out of here. That is the power, even against a highly redundant, highly threat-dense deck of discard. That's why we like to leave in 3 Inquisition in a matchup like this. So even though they... So let's review real quick. They had a 4-land hand. That's definitely too high for humans to want in an attrition matchup like this. But what are they going to do? Mulligan it? Well, that's also bad in a different way. They're going down on resources voluntarily. Now, did the opponent scoop a little bit too soon? Yeah, almost certainly. Like, you know, with those Horizon Canopies around, at least they can keep drawing. Like, at least they get redraws, at least they can stick in the game. They didn't even know that we had a good curve to follow that up anyway. So, you know, if there was a ton on the line in this match, I'm sure we could have expected them to stick it out. But I think we were really well set up. We had just drawn our 4th land, so we're going to be able to go tracker into land on turn 4 after kill spell for the champion next turn, Finks on turn 3 to stabilize and potentially start clocking, tracker on turn 4. We're in really, really good shape, right? Absolutely great. But, so anyway, you know, little bit of a rage scoop from the opponent, I think, you know, I don't necessarily blame them. That was a hand that was very vulnerable to discard, and of course, we had some really kind top decks in game 1, so they might have been feeling a little bit aggrieved. So, you know, sorry about that, opponent. Good games, well played. You piloted game 1 very well. And yeah, sometimes even against a deck like Humans that has all the redundancy and all the threat density in the world, a well-timed Inquisition can still cripple them. So, anyway, if you made it this far, you were warned that all the action happened in game 1. And, you know, we have to earn almost all of our wins, right? We have to grind out almost all of our wins. We have to make a lot of decisions every single game, and mistakes can be extremely punishing with Golgari. It's sweet every now and then to just get the free win, to just cast an Inquisition and have the opponent say, all right, well, let me look at the top card of my deck on my draw step. Yeah, I'm just beaten. I'm just dead. So, as much as we like fair Magic and we like interactive Magic and we like the, it's very rewarding, right, to come out victorious at the end of a long and grindy game where you made a lot of important decisions. It is sweet every now and then to get a taste of the easy life and to just cast an Inquisition and win, you know? So I don't feel bad about showing that one on video. It's something that we're entitled to every now and then. It's just Magic. It's just how it goes. So anyway, as always, everybody, thank you so much for watching. And as I said at the beginning of the video, if you'd like to get some deeper insight into this specific enemy, the Humans deck, that was the subject of my first ever scouting report, Patreon exclusive content. Of course, I'll be listening to feedback about my patrons, about the scouting report from my patrons. There we go. We'll see how the first one goes over, and I'll be shaping the scouting reports in the future to help you all the most that I can, and to be the most interesting and engaging. So anyway, if you're interested in checking out stuff like that, feel free to check out my Patreon page. You know where to find it. And always feel free to like, share, subscribe. That's how we grow the channel. That's how we all work together to make this Golgari deck, you know, even better and modern than it already is, which is, you know, it's pretty well positioned right now, I must say. Despite all the unfair decks flying around, despite the huge variety of archetypes and strategies we need to be prepared for, I still think we're really well positioned. So anyway, thanks again. Stay tuned to the channel. More gameplay to come, and I hope you have a great night. I will see you for the next video.